Welcome to week 2 of Aviation 100. I'm very excited today. We are joined by 4 guests, 4 Delta airline pilots who also happen to be esteemed UND Aviation alumni. They are here for Delta Day. So today marks Delta Day. They've already spent the morning out at flight operations, and then this afternoon and evening they have 2 presentations, the same presentation both times, to talk about the exciting Delta Propel Pathway Program. Those presentations are going to be today at 2 o'clock and 5:30. Again, in Clifford Hall 210. But in class today, they're going to share with us their careers, their experiences, how they got from Aviation 100, in some cases not so many years ago, in other cases a little bit longer ago, to where they are today at Delta Airlines. So real quick, I want to introduce, we have First Officer Logan Case. Logan actually was in my private pilot class. It feels like just a few years ago, but I looked it up and it was about 17 years ago. So exciting to have him back on campus. We also have First Officer David Barnes and First Officer Ryan Enders. Both of them, we were flight instructors together out at the airport. Again, feels like just a few years ago as well. And Captain Karen Ruth, 1982 alum and one of our first inductees into the UND Aerospace Hall of Fame. So very excited to have them. We do have the Q&A feature up on the webinar. So if you find it on the bottom, I also did activate the ability for you guys to vote up questions. So we're going to start with having them share their careers, again, how they got from UND to where they're at today. But then we're going to leave plenty of time for Q&A, questions about their careers, questions about their jobs. Again, remembering they are going to be presenting twice today on the Delta Propel program at 2 and 5:30. So we're going to have this class session focus more on their careers, their advice for you aspiring aviation professionals. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to First Officer Case to talk about his career. Logan.
Hey guys, thanks for having us out here today. As any of these guys would tell you, it's kind of the pinnacle of our career aside from flying is coming back to UND and kind of remembering our path to where we're at now. I came here in 2002 from Denver, Colorado, and I stayed until 2007 doing the commercial aviation and the aviation management second major, as well as flight instructing at the airport before I ultimately went on to Endeavor to fly the Saab and then a CRJ. Was there for about 10 years, till 2017 when I was hired at Delta. I've been there for coming up on 4 years. It seems like that happened really fast. It certainly doesn't feel like it's been 17 years. Along the way, I had kind of a unique opportunity to come back to UND in 2014 with Endeavor Airlines and do a pilot recruiting. So kind of a plug for the aviation management side. I did a second major when I was here while I was flight instructing, thinking that it was a good idea, but not sure why. And ultimately, I got involved in management, dispatch, supervisor, manager of pilot recruitment, and ultimately chief pilot out in New York. But I never really planned on that path. It was just, that was kind of what came. And I think it was that management degree that kind of got me ready for that. The other thing I learned about that is I didn't know what I was doing when I started doing any of those things. But I was really happy to have a good foundation underneath me coming from here. And that prepared me to figure it out very quickly as I went. And I think it's kind of like that, your pilot license is your ticket to learn how to, you know how to fly, but that's your ticket to learn. And I think the degrees from here are the same thing. They prepare you really well to go on to whatever comes next for you. To figure that out as it comes. And that's kind of the way this career has gone for me, is a lot of twists and turns that hopefully is much more streamlined for everybody now. But either way, you're well prepared for those twists and turns that come, and you just kind of keep your eyes open and look for those opportunities as they come. So that's kind of me. Left in 2007 at Delta Airlines, now flying the A220, which is the Bombardier C series for those of you that followed that, and the Airbus 320 before that. That's me. You ready, Dave?
Hard to follow good resumes like that. So I'm David Barnes. I got accepted to UND in 1996, and then a few months later, Grand Forks had all the blizzards, and the floods in '97 happened. So I wasn't sure if I was going to go to college my first year, but it was amazing watching the community of Grand Forks and everyone come together. So I started 1997 with UND. I'm a 2001 graduate. I was very involved with UND. So I graduated, I flight instructed for a few years. And and then picked up by Air Wisconsin Airlines in 2004. I flew for Air Wisconsin for 10 years, and then I've been at Delta since 2014. I'm currently Atlanta-based, and I fly the Boeing 757 and 767. So at UND, I always want to get involved. When you're involved, you know more about an organization or your school, and kind of your chance in your life to kind of decide what you want to do. So I highly recommend being involved with different things. I was very busy with the housing department. I was busy with the music department, both vocal and instrumental. It was fortunate when I was here, I was one of the charter members of the UND Pride of the North. So when they started the marching band, I was able to do that. My girlfriend at the time was also there, so my wife's also UND, not aviation, but UND for us is always home. So when we come back and do presentations and so forth, it's nice to come home. So with housing, I was a resident assistant, I was a resident manager. I worked in the apartments for UND. My wife was a hall director. She continues her professional higher ed housing, so another great way to get involved. When I was at UND, involved with Alpha Rho, SAMA, a student ambassador, so there's a lot of different opportunities. There's over 250 student organizations at UND, and I challenge each one of you, if there's something that interests you, go get involved. Especially try to get the leadership positions in those. That's something that we look for in potential new hires, as well as other industries, wherever your path might take you. So try to get those leadership positions, and that makes you a better individual, better presenting in the future, and so forth. So I was a flight instructor for a couple years. You can see in the picture that was up, I got my private in a Diamond Aircraft Katana. We don't have those anymore here at UND. Also the Beach Baron. It's a great updated fleet, and that's known in the industry. When you get a UND grad coming through training, they usually have no issues. You're very well prepared here. At Air Wisconsin, I had a lot of fun there. Again, flew with a CRJ 200 there. Started as United Express, and then we transitioned to US Airways Express. That company now currently flies for United Express again. And then with Delta, again, been there 7.5 years. Started out on the 717, transitioned to the 737, and then the 757, been on that, and the 767 for about 4.5 years. Again, recurring theme, I like being involved. I was a new hire mentor to start with Delta Airlines. I also do volunteer work with the Propel organization, as we all do. I'm also a standards pilot, where I'm able to go and do some flight training as well at the same time. But it's always good being back. And we all remember sitting in Aviation 100. Enjoy the class. You learn a lot. A lot of good friendships come from that class as well.
Perfect. Well, tough to follow these two with the resumes that they have, but I have a very similar story to Dave. I was 96. I started here. Came from a small town south of Minneapolis called Northfield, Minnesota. Always knew I wanted to fly. Was always a big UND hockey fan growing up, so the transition was fairly easy decision for me. Came up in 96, was doing my Aviation 102 during the flood of 97, which was a little bit of a setback, and adversity, which is a pretty good word for a lot of aviation careers. Came back in the summer, no power, lived in the warehouse apartments, studied over candlelight, which sounds kind of archaic, but true story, got through my 102. Came back, finished the rest of my aviation career here, graduated in December of 2000, flight instructed for UND till the end of spring semester. Went down to Minneapolis, taught at Flying Cloud Airport, and unfortunately, December 11, 2001, kind of put the skids on a lot of careers. So again, that adversity, had to pick up a new trade, started doing construction and finding stuff to do in the meantime. At one point, I was flight instructing at Flying Cloud. I was throwing bags for Masaba on the ramp. Doing anything I could to get my foot in the door in a career. And luckily enough, in 2003, I got hired on with Masaba Airlines. Stayed there till just short 6 months, where there was a furlough possibility, and went to Endeavor Airlines, which was Pinnacle at the time. In 2004, flew there till 2007, where I was picked up with Northwest Airlines. Started my career that transitioned with the merger into Delta. Lucky enough to fly the DC-9, MD-88, 757, 767. Went back and did captain on the MD-88 in Minneapolis until they closed that category there. And now I'm teaching. I'm a first officer on the Airbus 330, where I teach in our simulators down in Atlanta. Again, I remember being in class with Beth and Dave, and it couldn't tell me it was that long ago, but it feels really good to come back and give back to you and the college and represent Delta in the Propel program. So very excited to be here.
Okay, well, thank you, Ryan. They saved the oldest for last. That would be me. I resemble that remark. I started here at UND as a freshman in 1979, and I stayed for 3.5 years. Actually, I stayed a little bit longer, but I acquired a double major and a minor in 3.5 years. And then I started flight instructing my sophomore year, and I stuck around until I got a lot of, probably about 1,000 hours of flight instructing time. And then after that, I went on to get my seaplane rating, and I flight instructed for a little bit out of St. Cloud, and I got a job there flying fishing charters 1,000 miles north of Winnipeg. That was a really cool job. Then after that, I put my resume out everywhere, and I got hired at Schwann's Ice Cream. And I call that the job that I had 20 pounds ago, because I would just bop around from meeting to meeting and sample their newest products. Then I worked at Crown Airways for 1 year exactly, and I upgraded to captain in 4 months, where I flew the Twin Otter. That was a really cool job, part of the U.S. Air System. I got passes, and it was just a freight train of opportunities, much like what it is right now. So in a span of 2 weeks, I was offered 5 jobs at Republic, Sun Country, Eastern, American, and United. So I had to go through the laundry list of the good, the bads, the uglies, and decide, where am I going to go? What's the best fit for me? So I ended up working at Republic Airlines, which is not the same Republic Airlines that we see now, Republic Airways. It was a dedicated airline with Convairs, DC-9s, 757s, 727s. And I stayed there until we merged with Northwest a year and a half later. Then after that, I flew all the airplanes I could. I flew the Convair 580, the DC-9, both left seat and right seat, the Airbus 320, left seat and right seat. And that brings me up to my current airplane, which is the Airbus 330 wide body, doing all the international flight training and flying those routes. I'm an instructor currently. I was a line check pilot, and now I'm a lead line check pilot. So not only do I instruct the new first officers and captains, but I also instruct the instructors. So that brings me up to current 37 years at the combined airlines of Republic, Northwest, and Delta, and I'm so happy to be back here on campus.
Well, great. I just did some quick math, and I think we have almost 100 years of aviation airline experience in front of us today. So I do see there's some great questions coming in. I do encourage you to use the Q&A on the webinar to ask your questions of these folks, and we'll get to those in just a second. One thing I forgot to point out at first, First Officer Barnes did mention that he likes to be involved, and he was very involved as a student. I remember that, and Dave, you'd be happy to know that we have quite a few Pride of the North Marching Band members in this class right now, and it's grown leaps and bounds from when it started back in 1997. But Dave is also the president of our Aviation Alumni Advisory Board, which is a group of about 45 individuals that volunteer to give time back to the program, helping us with curriculum, helping our students succeed, and Dave is the president. So that involvement continues with UND long after graduation, which is great to see. So I'm going to put the first question out there and hope each one of you are able to answer it. The first one is, knowing what you know now well into your careers and knowing that all of you started in aviation at UND, just like our students that are in attendance today, what advice do you have for them? So what's that one main piece of advice that you wish you would have gotten week 2 of your aviation collegiate career? So Logan, do you want to start off?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Take it a step at a time. That idea of how do you eat an elephant, you eat it a bite at a time. When you guys are coming in where you're at, there's so much ahead of you, and it's all really exciting, but can also feel overwhelming. And you're also kind of finding your path through all this as you're doing it. And the idea of that can be a little overwhelming at times. So I would say spend a few minutes thinking about where you want to wind up and check back into that along the way. But then just enjoy the day-to-day. Take it one class at a time, one lesson at a time, one airplane at a time. And just know that UND has the track laid out for you. They know that a lot of people have taken these steps before you. And as long as you just keep taking those steps and doing your best along the way, you're going to be fine. You're gonna make it through. You're going to have a lot of fun, and you're going to wind up somewhere. And just every once in a while, slow down, look around, make sure you're going where you want to go, and be open to new things that may happen along the way. But yeah, take it a step at a time, and really enjoy it while you're doing it too, because 4 years sounds like forever right now, and everybody will say, yeah, but they go so fast, and they do, but the day-to-day doesn't go that fast. Enjoy the day-to-day, and really make the most of your time here.
Great advice.
Yeah, like I said, I'm Mr. Involved. It's fun to be involved. I became involved because recently retired Professor Ken Paulvitz in my Aviation 100 class said, don't be idle. Get out there, do things you want, try things, and I really took that to heart. So try to get involved, do things, and in the long run, that's going to help you immensely. Like I mentioned earlier, leadership positions. We'll talk about that tonight at our Propel presentations as well. It makes you better, more well-suited to do things in the future as far as involvement, organizations. You never know if you're part of a fraternity, a sorority, or a certain club. When you're across the table from an interviewer, they might have been in that same club at their university or even UND, and that's just one extra connection you can make. UND Aerospace is very well known throughout the world. On the alumni board, we have people throughout the world that do different things, and UND Aerospace is well known. Making those good connections as well is strong, a very good thing to have. If you want to fly Bush aircraft in Alaska for chance, we can go hold of our board and we can try to get you in touch with people. UND names all over the world. There's great connections. If you want proof, we're here. We're mainline legacy carrier, Delta Airlines. We came to UND. We're here for you. Airlines come as well. So UND has a great product, and it keeps getting better. So like Logan said, enjoy your time here, make the most of it, and don't be idle.
Ryan.
Well, I think Dave and Logan both took mine that I was going to use. Just kidding. The one advice that I would give is you're going to have a setback. I wish someone had told me that, in the middle of my Aviation 102 course, town was going to flood and there was going to be a fire downtown, and we weren't going to have power for 3-4 months. But you kind of have to roll with it, and you have to be okay with that. Everyone pictures this perfect career through college and through the regionals or a corporate, and then onto a major or flying boxes, whatever your preference is. Realize that there's just going to be a setback, and you got to be okay with it. It's how you handle the setback and what you do with it that really gets you to your ultimate goal. You can just remember to keep your eye on the prize, and whatever your goal is, just keep working hard for it, and you'll get there.
Okay. Well, first thing I would say is you're at one of the best aviation schools on the planet. And this 4 years is going to go fast. I want you to have fun. Don't forget about that. You're going to feel stress. That's normal. It's part of life to feel stress. It's not part of life to feel a lot of stress. Look at the people to the left of you, to the right of you, as your peers, not your competition. These people are here to help you. The university doesn't want you to feel stress. They have all sorts of places for you to go to get help. I had dinner with my daughter last night, and I said, what advice would you give to a freshman, because she's here right now as a junior? She goes, well, I really wish I would have studied ahead and not procrastinated, gotten my writtens done a lot sooner than I did because I waited till the end. And I wish I would have hung out with those farm kids because they knew all about generators and magnetos. And these are all the terms that she didn't really understand. And you know what? That's what they're there for. They don't want to be alone in this either. They're your expanded team to reach out for help. So don't be afraid to reach out for help. That's my big advice.
Good, and that's all very solid, strong advice, so thank you. That's also a good segue into our first question. Our first question is, how do you balance time in work and with your family? And Karen, you mentioned you have a daughter in the program, and Orion, you have a son that just started at UND as well. So how do you balance that work-life balance?
Well, okay, I'll start. I have 2 daughters. They're both in aviation, and they grew up knowing that mom's not going to be home sometimes, but you know what? That didn't really matter. We had Christmas 3 days before or 3 days after when I was more junior, but I kind of pre-planned that. I didn't get married till I was 35. So I was pretty darn senior. And my husband stayed home with the girls. So it was a really good team. You know, he would work when I was home and vice versa. And we had a good, solid family life. And we actually, as airline pilots, have way more time off than the average working parent. Not just female pilot, but male pilot. So you have a lot more time off than the average working person too.
I do. Unlike Karen, I started having kids. I have 2 boys. One, like Beth mentions, a freshman at UND, and I have another boy who's a sophomore in high school. We had kids when I was 23. And Karen's correct. You do have to do Christmas on the 26th sometimes, and you pre-plan. And there's things that you are going to miss. But there's a lot of times where at school where it was, parent go on a field trip that I was home those days and I was able to do those things. There was one point in my career, like I'm sure all of us sitting here and other pilots around the world have had, is I started to second guess if that's what I wanted to do. I was gone too much. I was missing too many things, I thought. I talked to a family member and they said, well, how many days off a month do you have? And at the time I had like 16 or 17 days off a month. And they said, really? I have 8. And I said, well, how do you have 8 days? And they said, well, I get up and leave the house at 6 in the morning and I get home at 6 at night and I get Saturday and Sunday off. And I started to think about it and really took it to heart and realized that I'm home way more. And it works out really, really well for me and my family and my kids and my wife. And I'm not afraid to say it. I think everyone would. There's sometimes where my boys will say, and my wife will say, don't you work soon? So it's a pretty good balance of when you're home and you're full time. And when you're gone and you're doing your work. And it's worked out really well for me and my family.
All right, moving on. And Karen, I'm gonna push this one for you first, just because I know you have Buttercup. So do you fly recreationally outside of work or own a small aircraft?
Okay, well,
can chime in.
One of the best things we did was buy a little Cessna 150, and there were 5 girls that were all friends of my daughter's. We used that airplane and time shared it and got 5 girls their private license just in one summer. And that is just so fun. I love to fly high and fast, but I really like to fly low and slow too. So that was a very inexpensive way to get a lot of flight time built up. Because, Buttercup, she only burns 4.5 gallons an hour. I mean, that is huge. And it doesn't matter how fast you go. You can bring it way back and get a lot more flight time and burn even less gas. So that's a good thing to do.
Anybody else still fly recreation or general aviation? Kind of fascinating. I just had a graduate student write a paper about this summer for a research class that I taught, and she interviewed a bunch of airline pilots to see how many kept with their general aviation routes. And her sample was about 50-50. But it's hard, I think, sometimes to. I wish, myself as well. I need to fly more. You get busy with your day job and your family.
Beth, do you mind if I jump in one more on that? So I'm not flying recreationally, but I think of this as a lot of things in this industry. It's just kind of a time for everything, and it depends where you're at in your career at the moment. And maybe you're junior and you're busy and you're working more days, or you've got more time with your family at home because more things are going on, and maybe you don't have time for it right now. But I have no idea, or no doubt rather, that I will be flying for sure for fun. And I hope it's not too far off. But that's a lot of things in this career. Maybe I'm not doing it right now, but I will be, and probably maybe just right around the corner. And it's the same thing with your friends here. You leave UND and maybe you don't see somebody for 10 years, and then all of a sudden you see them 3 times in a month. It's like, well, maybe I haven't done that for a while, but never say never to any of this, because this industry, it's always changing, which keeps it interesting. And maybe right now it's the best time to be doing something else, but maybe around the corner it'll be a great time to be flying again, flying for fun too.
I like this question. Here we are in Aviation 100, but we're already thinking about the future and even into retirement. So what are the benefits like at Delta in regards to health benefits, retirement, paid vacation? What does that look like besides just the pay?
Go ahead, Dave.
I defer to someone else.
Well, okay, so the more senior you are, the more opportunities you have for different aircraft. that's one of the really cool things about this career is you choose your own destiny. You decide when you want to upgrade, when you want to give yourself a pay raise. So that's what I did. I waited until my kids were a little bit older before I took the next captain spot, because it's all about quality of life. The quality of life you're going to get at Delta Airlines is amazing. The health, medical, dental benefits are awesome, and you have a 401k plan, and you have a defined contribution plan, so that if you're smart, you can really plan your retirement in advance and just be very cautious about saving. You know, even right now, you as freshmen, start putting away $20 a month, because that will pay dividends for you down the road, especially if you want to get an additional rating. So yeah, there are so many perks to this job. You know, I get paid to be a better pilot because I'm a flight and a lead line check pilot. I can take my kids with me on trips. I brought them over to Beijing and flew over the Great Wall of China, banked the airplane, told my kids to sit on this side of the airplane because I was going to fly over the Great Wall of China. How cool is that? So the benefits are just they're endless.
Yep.
So there's a lot of flexibility, as Karen alluded to. So I've been there 7.5 years. I could have upgraded about 13 months after being hired, but I delayed upgrade as well. It's all about seniority. If I do upgrade right now, I'd be a little more junior. I wouldn't have vacation choices. I'd have kind of what schedules are left over. My wife's a professional business person, so it's nice having flexibility. I'm a little more senior on my fleet, so I have a lot of flexibility with scheduling. I can change and pick up, swap trips around. And Delta allows you to do all that. It's all automated. So if it's legal, you're probably good to go. If I have a good friend who sees my trip, hey, I want to do that trip instead, we can swap. There's a lot of flexibility. As far as like upgrading, you can upgrade, you can downgrade. So I've had captains I've flown with on the 717. They were a captain there, and then they decided to go to the right seat of like the A330 to be more senior. So there's a lot of flexibility. When I was looking for airlines, I was looking for something with options. I wanted different fleet types. I wanted crew bases around the country. I wanted options of domestic or long-haul flying, because 10, 20, 30 years, when my kids are grown and so forth, I don't know what I want to do, and Delta does offer that. So I fly the 75, 767, and I have the benefit I can stay domestic. Or if it gets cold in the States, I can go down to Brazil or Rio de Janeiro, where it's in the middle of the summer down there. If I want to go to Europe, I can cross the ocean. Here at UND, you don't fly much over water except for lagoons or East Ponds when you're coming into Grand Forks International. So it's fun. There's a lot of different opportunities. But yeah, seniority is everything.
I have one more thing to add on that. I'm going to have 42 years if I go to age 65. And one of the really cool things about Delta is that in addition to flying the airplane, flying the line, there's opportunities for you to be an interviewer. I've been an interviewer. I've been a captain leadership instructor. I've been an ambassador. I'm a Propel liaison. There's all these other jobs that are available to you if you have other skill sets. And it's really cool. I've got plenty of flight time. I have about 25,000 hours. So it's really interesting to do other things to help you appreciate everybody else's job. I have a new appreciation for their role, and I never take them for granted. So that's another perk.
So great. So this question can go one of two ways. So we'll kind of ask both of them. What are the international opportunities to be a Delta pilot? So let's first take it as you guys fly international. In fact, Karen, someone asked specifically, how many countries have you flown to? I don't know if you keep a tally of that,
Yeah.
but what is it like? How do you get into those international flying opportunities? And then we'll talk about the international student.
Okay, well, I pretty much have been to every country in the world except for Australia. That's on my bucket list. But I've pretty much spanned the globe. And international, how to bid into that? You know what? As new hires, we've just been told that we might be getting new hires into the 330 fleet. And that fleet, that's where Ryan and I are, and we love that airplane because it goes everywhere. So it's based on what you bid and what your seniority can hold. Anybody have anything to add? Now, Dave, you've done some international.
Yep. So I came from regional jet into the 7-1, which is mainly domestic. multiple legs a day in and out of Atlanta, New York, etc. It was very comfortable. It was nice. And then I went into the 7-3 where I did some more Latin America flying. I did more transcon. I got to see Los Angeles for the first time as a pilot. So I did that, got comfortable, and then I went to the wide body, 7576, where again I could expand who I was as a pilot. Now I learned long haul, international operations, North Atlantic crossings. I always like things that are new. So I just picked up a trip. I'm flying from Minneapolis to Keflavik, Iceland next week. I've never been there before, so that'll be kind of neat to see the volcanoes and so forth. But it's a lot of mini vacations when you do the long haul stuff. Usually a long flight, you're off for a day to reset your duty clock and so forth. And great time to go out with the crew and go explore, go out with a group or just do your own thing.
And Ryan teaches on the international.
I was going to add to what Dave was saying about the international. Karen was talking about schedules with time at home, or if you wanted to be more senior category, you want to go upgrade to captain as soon as you'd like. The same applies to the international flying. It's not for everybody. Some people I've had as students on the 330 come check out on it, and they just can't sleep when they get to Europe, or when they do the Pacific flying. If they want to go to Asia, they get there and they just cannot adjust. So the flexibility is there to be able to do the domestic side and then switch over and say, hey, you know what, I like international. Like Dave was saying, it's almost a mini vacation. I really enjoy the international side. In a month, I'll be in Amsterdam, Paris, Dublin. There's so many options, and you find out which one's your favorite, and you do mini vacations. And so the variety there on the international side versus the domestic is another good option for pilots.
But then you have the cool factor that Logan's doing on this. Really cool.
Yeah.
You should tell them about that, Logan.
Yeah, so I flew the CRJ. I did the CRJ course at UND, and then I flew the CRJ at Endeavor, which I loved. The regional flying was a lot of fun for me. The longer range flying that the bigger CRJs do is fun as well. I came to Delta, and I'm flying another Bombardier original product, the Airbus A220, which is just sort of like a supersized, super awesome CRJ, kind of everything the CRJ wished it could be. And it's been amazing. I've been on it for only a few weeks, but already I could see that I'm not going to tire of this kind of flying anytime soon. It has a stick like the Airbus Series 2, but with a weighted feel too, and a trim on it. I feel like I'm really flying it. It feels fantastic. And sometimes I someday look forward to the international flying, but there's a whole lot to see here too. And with this airplane and some of the others that we have with the advanced GPS capability, we're starting to do the curved approaches that get us access to some airports we couldn't do before, like some of the Montana, Wyoming airports where you do Palm Springs, California, you do a full circle in on the approach. I mean, you guys see this technology, or you will very soon. It's amazing when it makes it out into the real world, what it enables us to do. And we've got so many different things you can do that if something's not your flavor, you wait a little while and you're going to have a number more options. And that's one of my favorite things about Delta, is just sort of dreaming about where the future is. Or when I fly with a new guy and I said, or a new gal, she said, what were you flying before? Tell me about that, I'd love to hear what it's like to do these kind of trips. And I kind of think about it, that does sound fun. Okay, maybe someday I really do want to do that. There's a lot of opportunities, and the domestic flying is a blast too. And some people, that's really what they like, And I kind of like going to the small towns too. Well, I mean, obviously, I love coming back to Grand Forks when I got those chances. But every other small town where it's kind of like flying outside of Grand Forks, it's like you own the airport for that moment that you're there. And that's a really good feeling too.
Great. So can you guys touch on, are there opportunities at Delta and the Propel program for international students?
Yep, there is. Currently, we don't sponsor any kind of green or visas or anything, but if you're eligible to work for Delta Airlines, you are eligible for the Propel program as well.
And that's a great question. We have a number of international students in this class, and that's where I'd really plug the UND career fairs. We have one here in September as well as one in February. Each company is a little bit different on where they're at, and personally I can see more movement in the smaller, the regional airlines right now and that, but you just need to talk. Everyone is different, and they're at different stages of where they're at in their hiring of international students. So All right, so what do you guys like about flying passengers rather than cargo, such as FedEx and UPS, that tend to pay more and have a lot more wide bodies and international routes? So what is it about the Delta and the passengers versus cargo, Dave?
I'm a people person. I like people. We're really big on customer involvement. You know, we're here for safety, number one, and our customers are number two. And with Delta, we love giving out wings and cards to first-time flyers, to kids, and so forth. This last trip, we got the flight attendants were talking to a mother and a husband with a newborn little girl. As they got our first flight, it was so fun. So the flight attendant came up, and we wrote a little card to thank you for flying with us. And so I put my hat on, went back and said hi, and we gave a pair of wings and the airplane card that we were flying in that day. And it's fun walking up to gates and seeing everyone just kind of look at you and come up, ask you all sorts of questions. If you're walking in the terminal, hey, do you know where my gate to Cleveland is? Like, well, absolutely. Let me walk you down to the terminal and I'll help you to find where it's at. But it's fun interacting with the passengers, good and bad. It's a good learning experience for everything.
Anybody else?
No.
I've been fortunate enough to be doing a lot of cargo missions in the last year, especially with COVID. I was picking up the vaccine in India and in Frankfurt and other places all around Europe. It's cool, but I miss my flight attendants. I miss the bing, will you bring me a coffee up here, please? And I also miss the schedule being pretty much on time. When you're flying cargo, you're at the mercy of the customer. And sometimes Pfizer and Modena, they didn't bring the vaccines to us in time, so we were late. But it's just a whole different thing. I'm not saying it's good, bad. It's just different. And I like to mix things up, so it was really a new challenge.
I got to jump in. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
now that I'm thinking about it, getting right. I used to commute on FedEx to Memphis, and it was a really cool airline. And I think cargo life it's a different one, but it's really cool. And the fly-in was really cool. But there was nobody standing around watching them walk up to the gate, you know, and nobody talking about their airplane, and nobody that they got to talk to in the back and think about while they were flying, you know. And that is a big part of this job. The flying is really fun, but there's a whole nother element that I never thought about, and it is really rewarding. And it makes you feel really good. You know, when I first came to UND, I'm in aviation, and everybody's like, yes, so am I. You know, I was really excited, but I was the same as everybody, you know. But you get out into the real world, and you get to the airport, and you remember that not everybody knows this industry, and it's still kind of a wow thing to a lot of people, and you're right at the leading edge of that. And you walk up, and you know, we take a lot of pride in what we do, and how we do, and how we present ourselves, because people look at us too. This is something amazing to me, you know, and it feels really good to be in front of people doing that. It's just sort of validating for, you know, the career you chose.
A little bit tongue-in-cheek, I have a little list of the top 10 reasons why I love my job. And one of the things is it's a professional, respected career. So at a Christmas party, people want to talk to me. They don't want to talk to my husband. He's in IT. How boring is that? So it's the cool wow factor, you know. And we should be proud of our profession because it's very hard to get here, to get this training done. It's not for everybody. And if you succeed in the 4 years, which you will, you should be darn proud of yourself because it's not for everyone.
Great. This is a good question. What are the biggest threats to retaining a medical, and what are some things that they could be doing now to be proactive to keep that medical?
Well, that's a really good question.
I can take that one a little. You know, the medical is the one thing that's kind of out of our control, per se. To me, like we talked about before in all these conversations, that there's different options for you. Like Karen had mentioned, I teach in the simulators in the Airbus A330. For me, I wanted to have a little bit more regular schedule, but really what it comes down to is taking care of your health. It sounds silly. I know going to Wilkerson and getting the fried chicken or the chicken wings is great, but I mean, taking the multivitamin, doing your regular checkup with your doctor. Every layover that we go to, the hotel is covered by Delta, but they all have really nice fitness centers. So taking that time to put in the 30 or 60 minutes to take care of your physical health really makes it go a long way in your career to keeping that first-class medical, which really is the one thing at the end of the day is out of our control that can keep us from doing what obviously the four of us love to do.
Take the preventative things seriously. You probably think when you're in college, and I did too, that nothing could ever go wrong. You know, you're going to be healthy forever because you can do about anything and feel fine the next day. But you got to think the long term too. You know, everything within reason, nothing in excess. And I think it's also kind of a plug for focus on your aviation, but also do other things. You know, keep time in your life to do other things, especially things that are good for you. Get out and do things socially. That's good for your mental health. Get out and do things physically. That's good for your physical health. You know, it helps revitalize you to focus your energy into flying, you know, but it also kind of keeps you in balance. It keeps you healthy along the way. And taking care of yourself is what enables you to really enjoy this career. And at every step of the way, you know, you guys have an unbelievable fitness center on campus. You've got a lot of activities to be involved in, a lot of intramural sports if that's your thing. But then when you get to here and you go to Europe, go for a long walk, you know. Go to the gym, go out and do something. That's what keeps you healthy and going. And just as a kind of a personal thing, but be careful too in those hobbies that you pick. And some things, you know, I had a motorcycle when I was at UND. Don't tell Delta. Because, you know, that's a joke, but it isn't. I'm thinking about my long term, you know. At the time, I was thinking about my family, but I was also realizing, you know, I don't want to get hurt. If I get hurt on that thing, I might not be able to fly again. And that's more important to me than it was having a motorcycle, you know. And it's just, not saying you can't, but be careful and think about these things and think about where it goes. And make sure that you just keep that in the back of your mind as you're deciding.
Medical and fitness is very important to Delta. We have different programs where they have incentives. If you go in and get preventative checkups from different physicians and so forth, then you might get some bonuses added, like a company credit card you can use at the company. In our main headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia, we have a large fitness center. In Atlanta, at the airport, there's a fitness center that we have access to. In New York, we have a 3-hour sit. You know, you land, you take your stuff, change. We have a gym right in one of our crew rooms you can go check out and get a little workout done. And that's one of my favorite things of Europe. Land in Europe, maybe take a quick power nap, and then go walk for hours. Go look at the sights. I do a lot of teaching in Bogota. I don't walk as much because that's over 8,000 feet up, the field elevation, but get winded pretty quick. But it's fun to go see what's out there. Going to Costa Rica, walking through the mountains, you know, watching monkeys watching you as they're walking along. It's just fun to get out and stay active, and Delta definitely recognizes that as well. Provides a lot of excellent opportunities.
So great. This is a question we'll start with Karen, because Karen is a true pioneer in the aviation industry, especially when it comes to female aviators and pilots, and she has mentored thousands of young people into this career. Do you see a lot of females in the airlines, or perhaps can you talk about where we are now from when you started, Karen?
Oh my gosh, yes. When I started, there were 8 that looked like me at Republic Airlines, and now I don't even really know for sure if it's 6%. Maybe the number is higher at UND, but we embrace any part of diversity. We want you to all sign up for this because it's not a physical thing. I'm not carrying the jet on my shoulder across the ocean. I'm rotating a little joystick and using this. So there's nothing stopping you from this career, because as a mom, you can do this. And like I mentioned earlier, I have a lot of time off. And I waited to have kids a little bit later in life, so I had the seniority to have more quality time at home. So what I do is anytime I see a female that's interested, I basically go over there and harvest her and say, you want to do this. Don't think you can't do it, because I had some unbelievable mentors that guided me into this career and this profession, and I will never look back.
So great. This is kind of an interesting question looking forward. So obviously we're seeing a lot of new technologies. This one references artificial intelligence and UAS, drone flying. Where do you see this career going? They say 50 years, but maybe we could think 10, 20, 30, 50 years. Where do you see the career of an airline pilot as we know it today? Tough one.
When I was at the regionals, we still had our big flight cases, as I'm sure everyone sitting here today did. And it's a big, heavy case. It has all your approach plates, your company manuals, your required flashlight, your headset, had everything with you. And it was pretty heavy to log around. When I started Delta, we'd be flying. We'd have all the different approach plates and things all out, laid out for the arrival, the approach, and it gets pretty busy trying to fumble through it. Now you have a runway change, or now they change your arrival. So it's hard flipping through the books, finding the right one, trying to carefully open it up, take it out without ripping it out. And then we currently at Delta Airlines, we use EFBs, electronic flight bags. So we use the iPad, and we're going to get the newest one here shortly, but it's so much nicer because it increases safety. We just hit buttons. It has everything there loaded for us. It auto-loads our flight plans. They give us so many tools at Delta. It makes everything so much easier. With that iPad, we have company-developed software where if we're flying along, we can have an app that shows us what the weather's like ahead, whether it be the radar or even more importantly, what the ride's going to be like. Is it going to be really bumpy? Is it going to be smooth? That's really important for passengers. If we see like a red box ahead of us at our altitude, we'll have air traffic control if they have any reports and say, well, we'd like to come down like 4,000 feet. We're showing some bumps on one of our apps. We'll come down 4,000 feet. Now we get to the area and now it's real bumpy. Other aircraft are stuck there because we're already down below. We already took that altitude that's not available to the other airplane that's flying. So with that, we're able to give a smoother flight as well. We have another app that we developed we called Flight Family. So before we're boarding the plane, we use that term CRM, Crew Resource Management, where you expand your team to help make safe and logical decision making. And this app allows us, at a touch of a button, we can communicate virtually anyone that's associated with that specific flight, our operations tower, our dispatcher in Atlanta, the gate agent, the flight attendants. I can even send a note, hey, we don't know if our lavatory's been serviced. Can someone please check? And they, yep, we'll be right on that. And they get back to us. If we have a maintenance issue, we can send text messages to maintenance, hey, we have this issue. Can someone come out and take a look? Absolutely. Again, it makes it much more efficient and definitely gets us out on time, which is very important. A lot of technology, and it's going to be increasing even more.
Great. So we do have time for a couple more questions, but I do want to break in. Of course, Aviation 100 students, you know that we do need to do an attendance quiz each week. So the quiz is active out there. The password is Propel. So capital Propel is the password for this week's quiz. Like I said, we do have time for a couple more questions though, but I did want to get that quiz password out for everybody viewing. So could one of you kind of talk about how are you assigned to certain hubs or certain aircraft? That's one of the questions that came in. So if someone could explain how the seniority works.
I'll jump in if you guys don't mind. I'm the most recent hire to Delta, which means I'm at the bottom of the seniority list. And you've heard us say it several times that seniority is the primary driver of a lot of your opportunities at the airlines. So it has a lot to do with when you get in. As a new hire, generally there's what's available. Everybody senior to you has a chance to sort through and pick what they want, and their preferences get considered. They're awarded things first, and at the end of the day, when all those things are awarded, what's still available goes to the new hire. And then they get in line, and as their seniority progresses, more things become available to them. They say, can your seniority hold it? You know, you could say, well, somebody seniority has it. I'm at the same as them. Then, okay, I'm to that level now. Captain is that way, but everything is that way. Bases are that way. One thing that I've said or thought about is that the bases are different seniority, and that changes as who's there changes in retirements and such. But Minneapolis is fairly senior. New York is fairly junior. So we wind up with more new hires in New York or some of those towns like New York and California, the more junior bases. Which means that your seniority is a lot better in those bases. I'm living out in New York. I've only been here for 4 years, but I've got a great schedule. I've got weekends off. I've got a lot of days. I spend time home with my family. So by choosing to live in New York, I get a lot more seniority, and I'll have an earlier chance at an upgrade. Or I could use that same seniority to maybe fly international in the right seat, or I could use it to move to Minnesota and have the quality of life of living where I want to live. The benefit to people in the industry now, and especially you guys, is that when things are moving quickly in the industry, that's when your seniority changes. That's when you move up quickly, and so the opportunities come to you soon. Which doesn't mean it's a race. You still need to focus and do what you're doing one step at a time here. But when you're ready and you move into that, you get on a seniority list where you want to be, ideally at, I hope, Delta, but you want to look around and find out where you want to be, because that's the path that you're going to get on and you're going to stay on, maybe for the rest of your career, hopefully. You're going to have a lot of opportunities along the way. Seniority.
I'll add to that. The other thing, we keep talking about flexibility and choices in your career and how that choice might change over the time of your career. We have the ability to commute to different bases. I have a friend who lived in Minnesota, was based in Minneapolis, and decided to get based out in Seattle. So every time he had to do a trip, he would hop a flight and go out to Seattle. And what he was really doing was checking out the Seattle area, and found out that that was a really nice place to live, and he wanted to live there with his family. So the next time a bid came available, he took that opportunity. He moved his family out to Seattle. So I think we've all talked about it many times, is there's a lot of options of where you want to be based and the different aircraft that you want to fly. So a lot of different opportunities to move around and check out different cities where we have bases.
You want to share those cities? Bases are at?
Yeah, we have bases in Seattle, LA, Salt Lake City, Minneapolis, Detroit, New York, and Atlanta. Did I miss any?
I think you got them
I
all.
think that's it. So
Good.
those really spread out throughout the U.S. and the corners and the coasts, and a couple real nice cities in the middle of the country as well to pick as a base that you would like.
Okay, I do want to thank students for writing in the questions. We've gotten to quite a few of them, but there's still a lot of great questions out there. I do just want to reiterate that Logan, Dave, Ryan, and Karen are our Delta Propel liaisons. So we hope to see them. They're here the second week of class here on campus. We hope to see them frequently on campus now that things are starting to turn around. And they're here to be a resource for you, and they'll help connect you with others at the airlines to help answer your questions. So real quick, there is a question about how is the fastest way to get to Delta? And I think maybe that would be a good plug for your presentations this evening. If you want to share what we can expect at the 2 and 5:30 presentations.
Well, I'll start with that. It's a presentation on professionalism and leadership, which is a core skill that is a lifelong skill that will help you in any career that you have. We're going to give you an update on Delta Propel, the pathway program that is specific for UND students with your eligibility starting with credits attained from junior year, senior year, and 6 months after graduation. So I want you to start preparing yourself to apply when you're at a junior status. But if you would like to come today, it's open to everyone. We would love to give you pretty much the precursor, prerequisites of the program, and just happy to explain all the intricate qualifications, eligibility requirements for being in the Propel Pathway program. It is the only airline, Delta Airlines is the only airline that has a defined timeline of 42 months or less once you're accepted into the program. So we're very proud of that.
So great to learn more about Propel today at 2 o'clock and 5:30. They're also putting on some webinars. I will get that information out in our weekly newsletter for the Delta Propel program as well that you can tune into. And again, I just want to really thank Logan, Dave, Ryan, and Karen for being here today. This is the first time Delta has been in person on campus, I think, since February of 2020 with our community days. So just so thankful to have you back on campus and looking forward to your presentations this afternoon. And again, Aviation 100 students, thanks for tuning in. And don't forget to take that quiz. The password, of course, again, is Propel. And we hope to see you this afternoon, 2 o'clock or 5:30 in Clifford Hall 210 to learn more about the amazing Propel program. Thank you.